Hey, thank you for tuning in the Inquisitive Minds podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Johnny Smith. Before I get into the guest today, I just want to say last week's episode, remember, me and Brittany are both comedians. It was all a bit. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know it got a little off the rails. But with me today, I have the founder, president, and CEO of Citizen Science Lab, Dr. Andre Samuel. Welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on there. As a disclaimer for the listeners, I like to think of myself as a fairly smart guy, but there's been times where I'm just outclassed. This is going to be another one of those episodes right here.
Oh, no, don't do it.
Real quick at the top, let's just get into what the Citizen Science Lab is.
Wow. Okay, well, the best way to describe it really for me, I think, is the YMCA of STEM or science. The Citizen Science Lab is a laboratory for the inquisitive minds and the science enthusiasts.
I like that.
Thank you.
That's actually how we met. We were at a Starbucks, and he looked at my shirt and said, "I like the shirt." I said, "Thank you." He said, "That's in our mission statement." Immediate antennas went up. Well, tell me your mission statement.
Yeah, that's right.
I love it. And I don't know, not everybody realized this because this wasn't a focus when I went to school. So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Yeah.
And that just focuses on those core.
It focuses on those core things, right? It was an attempt by the National Science Foundation and Dr. Ranadley, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, coined this term. To try to incorporate all of the disciplines. There are some good things to it, but there's some bad things to it too. I don't necessarily agree with the term, even though it's widely used and certainly for marketing purposes, it's a great buzzword.
It's catchy.
It's catchy. But I think that, while it was an attempt to make things inclusive, it was also sort of an attempt to sort of dumb down things and allow people to choose one specific thing out of STEM. And I think what you'll see recently is when you see most people talking about STEM, they're talking about technology-based programming, which is just the T. It's not inclusive of all of them, right? And so, yeah.
Honestly, yeah, when I hear about STEM, I mainly think about technology,
computers, 3D printing, right?
The advancements.
Drones, the advancements, right? It doesn't tend to include the life sciences, the molecular biologists, the physics, aspects of science, really, which are really fun, but people are forgetting about it.
Yeah, you know what? Let's get into that because your resume, before we even get more into that, your resume is quite impressive.
Thank you.
So you went to the University of D.C., where you got a degree in biology?
Yeah.
How was that, first off? Just a little brief.
It was awesome, but it was at a time in my life where I was married and had my first kid. I was an adult student at that time, and so it was also a struggle. I mean, there were times where I was taking my son to class when he was like 18 months old.
Okay.
You know
what? I like the drive, though.
Yeah. But I mean, I grew up in D.C.
Okay.
And so I tell you, it was humbling for me because when I grew up in D.C. I went to high school there, graduated and everything. UDC had a bad name for it, right? And UDC is actually a historically black college and university.
I didn't know that.
A lot of people don't know that. People think that in D.C. there's only one, that it's Howard University, but there are two, right? So anyway, but I didn't know that as a kid growing up. But what I did know was that, like, we called people, or we said that people who went to this university went to the University for Dumb Children.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Because it wasn't one of the greater known universities, right? And so it was really humbling for me to go back there, to go there, because I actually transferred from another school. But it was a phenomenal experience. The classes were really small. I'm talking like 10, 15 students to a professor.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
And these are your major classes like biology and genetics and so on. So I got a lot of really awesome one-on-one attention from my professors.
You grew up in D.C. What got you involved in the sciences?
Dude, I grew up a nerd.
Okay.
That's what I was, right? Like, I mean, I'm 6'1". I was tall as a kid, and people would be like, try to get me on the basketball court, not play, but they were like, yo, how are you so tall and so bad at this? Well, my favorite toys were, microscopes, chemistry sets that I found, G.I. Joe, video games, and so on. I mean, I did sports. I loved playing sports. I just never did organized sports or team sports. I just always had a natural fascination with trying to figure out how things worked. I like putting stuff together, taking it apart, trying to repair it.
That's the origin of a supervillain.
Of a supervillain or a superhero?
We'll find out. But I'm just trying to get on the ground floor no matter which way it turns. That's cool. So you did your graduate study at George Washington University?
I did, yeah. Well, so I tell you what, I worked there, right?
Okay.
And as working there, I was working on a research study, and I got free tuition, basically. So I was
Why
like,
not?
hey, there's a master's program available in the department that I was working in. So I did a year of that master's program for free.
And that was in genomics and bioinformatics?
Genomics and Bioinformatics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
here we
yeah,
go. It's
yeah. So
break those down.
all right, cool. So genomics is the study of genes, the genome, the genetic information and what it does, right, inside the cell.
I'm sorry to keep interrupting.
Yeah.
We'll come from an idiot's perspective.
Okay.
Like I know nothing because I hear the words and you say buzzwords like genome.
Right.
Like we all hear that.
Yeah.
But if I don't like, I'll be like, oh, that's a smart guy thing. I don't know what a genome is.
Okay. So let's break it down. Like the genome really consists. Let's say if we were going to go to let's compare it to a library. Okay. You want to go get some information and get a specific book on something, right? You would go and there's a whole catalog of these books.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The genome is really sort of like it encompasses the catalog of all the genes that we have in our cells.
Okay.
And what they do, what they produce.
Oh,
right?
so it's vast. It's
It's
more,
vast.
Okay.
It's huge.
It's like the card catalog there.
Yeah, exactly. In a sense, right? So knowing the genome means you know what genes are producing what proteins, and that those proteins result in what sort of action or biochemical action in the cell. When we're talking about biochemical actions, we're talking about the processes that go on in the cell that allow us to live.
Okay.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And then the
The bioinformatics.
Yes.
All right. So
because that sounds like a Final Jeopardy answer.
Well, I'll give you a hint here, and this is what I do with our students. Biology, we as nerds, we love using sort of the same terms over and over again and combining those terms to make new words, right?
Mm-hmm.
So bioinformatics, whenever you see the term bio, you're always going to think life. And then informatics is always going to be about information systems or computing. So really bioinformatics tells us, right, it's about biology and the systems that are designed to study them. So it really is computers used to obtain and monitor the information and turn it into data and turn it into usable data that we can make assumptions or theories from.
That's very impressive.
Thanks.
Here we go. You got your Ph.D. in biology from Duquesne University.
Yes. Yeah. Go Dukes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now your research. This more stuff I don't really know what it means because it said I looked you up. Obviously, I was very curious.
Yeah,
You're a very
you got a lot of
fascinating
information there.
It said you studied cold shock related proteins in E. coli.
Yeah.
And to me, it could be in French, like for all that matter. You know what I mean? I
Right.
understand what E. coli is.
Yeah.
I understand what study, but cold shock related proteins. I'm like, are we talking muscle milk here? What are we doing?
Yeah, well, so again, right, for us, it's that really sort of biology term that if we think about it, it can kind of tell us. So cold shock proteins are these proteins that respond to a change in temperature. Initially, they were discovered when bacteria were exposed to really cold conditions just all of a sudden. So from growing in a warm condition and all of a sudden just like putting them in shock, boom. They're cold, and they produce these proteins that they don't normally produce. And so we studied those, and I studied those as a target for antibiotics, right? Because antibiotics target bacteria specifically. E. coli is a model microorganism or bacterial organism. And then we found these set of cold shock proteins that are essential. What that means is these cells need these proteins or these genes to produce these proteins in order to live. Right? And so now we can target those as a means to develop a drug that can prevent bacteria from causing infections or bacteria that are multi-drug resistant. We can find a new drug based on using these proteins as a model to study.
So essentially, you end those proteins, the bacteria can't survive.
Exactly. You prevent those proteins from functioning, the bacteria can't survive. Yep.
Now, when you studied it on E. coli, Is that dangerous? Was there like,
No.
is it a dormant strain? or-
No.
No, not at all.
Yeah. A lot of people think E. coli. Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
Infections, recalls, right? Spinach, all of that. No, there are different
Chi-Chi's, the
strains.
downfall of Chi-Chi's.
yeah. Right? Shutdown of Chipotle too, right?
Yeah.
The same thing,
Yeah.
right? So there are different strains of E. coli.
Okay.
So, and the one that causes infection is a strain 0517, if I'm correct. But
I'm not going to correct you.
Someone, there's a microbiologist listening saying, it's you idiot, doctor my foot. But, I can't remember, but it's 0587, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a strain that is, infectious. The strain that we work with, or the strains that we work with, because there are a number of different strains, are not infectious. They couldn't cause anything really more severe than maybe an outbreak on your skin if you were to touch your skin or something like that. Maybe if you drink a whole tube of it while you were sitting there in the culture lab, might not be good, but for the most part, you're good.
Yeah, that again, things from the outside I would never know, because in my head, I'm seeing you in like a hazmat suit, like walking around like, with these petri dishes.
Right. Well, I've been there.
Oh,
Been
really?
there. Yeah. I've worked in what's called a biosafety level 3 facility, right? There are 4 levels of biosafety.
Okay.
All right. So biosafety level 3, it's deadly, but there is a cure for it, or there's a treatment for it. The biosafety level 4, it's deadly, there is no cure. So
what falls under the 4 category?
So like Ebola, right? Your what we call filarial viruses, or your hemorrhagic fevers, Ebola, Marchupa.
I've never even heard of Marchupa.
Marburg fever.
Okay.
Yeah. These are all sort of. I'm a true nerd, dude. So I spend my time reading, or I've spent my time reading about infectious disease and their origins, and epidemics and pandemics and stuff like that, just as a hobby.
Now, I'm sure you have colleagues that share the same interest. Do you guys ever play these? Because I know comics will sit around and ask stupid questions like what if theories. Do you ever discuss those?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'll look. Here's the deal, right? I'm a black man. The majority of my circle is black, and very few people in my family or within my social circle can actually share a lot of the passions or conversations that that we as nerds would have.
That's fair.
So it can be kind of lonely, when you're talking about like being able to socialize with like-minded people, but who are also like, I guess,
have the understanding.
Just have the understanding of sort of your struggle as a black person, as a scientist, because there are very few of us out there.
Do you want to touch on that?
I mean, we can.
Like, no, I mean, I don't. This is the platform I have, but I love to elevate.
Well, I mean, listen. So this is why we created the Citizen Science Lab, right? We wanted to expose youth of all ages to the wonders of science. Not just STEM, but science. And I particularly had an interest in it because, for the 6 years it took for me to do my Ph.D., I was the only black person in my program. And that's not necessarily because, there are some systemic barriers in the way, but the biggest systemic barrier is that students like me aren't exposed to it at an early age. So, if you look at the data, the National Survey of Earned Doctorates will show that only about 6% of PhDs in the life sciences are handed out to African Americans, right? But then we see the data also shows that 40% of people who pursue a PhD in the sciences have had at least one person in their family who holds a degree, or at least attempted to hold a degree in the sciences. So we see that the data shows that, most of us aspire to be what we see. And if we don't see it, right, and if our kids don't see it in our schools, and they don't get to experience it in our schools, then they don't get to dream to be it. And so that's why the Citizen Science Lab was essentially created.
That's beautiful, man.
Thank you.
It's very eloquent too.
Wow, thank you.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
I grew up in a bad neighborhood, and I didn't get exposure to any of this. Like, legitimately, I didn't have any dreams growing up of like what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. I just wanted to get out of high school because that shit was miserable.
I can relate to that.
I started college as an adult.
Yeah.
I was 21, 22 when I was in school for journalism, and even that wasn't like a dream. It just seemed like a means to an end because I was never a broadcasting nerd or anything, what I'm doing now. But if you're exposed to the potential and possibilities at a younger age, you can see more of what you want to become.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's my humble mission, dude.
And you're attacking it in a way that I've never really heard someone approach it before, because we'll say inclusivity, no matter if it's for women or African Americans or whoever, it's always talked about at a level where the normal person can't walk off the street and join.
Right.
We need to get more people at a collegiate level interested in careers in engineering, but they never heard of it before.
Yeah.
But when you plant the seeds and grow it at a young age, hey, you might not want to be a scientist. You might not want to be an engineer.
Right.
But just know that you can be.
Yes.
There's possibilities.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And that if you don't want to be a scientist or engineer, there are other opportunities and there are other options, right?
Man.
I mean, look, I finished my Ph.D. in 2014, so I was in my 40s. Okay.
No
family of 4. My wife and I, we took turns. She went to law school. That's how we ended up in Pittsburgh. We actually came here on a 3-year plan in 2004, right? We all had aspirations to want to do something more. I grew up raised by a single mom, and I was adopted, right?
Listeners know.
So raised by my single mom, adopted, but I never had my father or a positive black male image in my house, but I was surrounded in Washington, D.C. by positive black male images. It was no thing to see a black doctor. It was no thing to see a black lawyer. I grew up in a school district where I may have only had 1 or 2 white teachers, whereas the reverse here in Pittsburgh, So there was a blessing there, but I was, it was about being exposed. I went to the Smithsonian on a regular basis.
Do you think that put you in a bit of a bubble, like having?
No.
Okay.
No. My mom made sure I was not in a bubble.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up in Adams Morgan, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it is like the UN of culturally. It's like the UN socially. It is an area where I grew up knowing people from Ethiopia, El Salvador, Nigeria, Jamaica, and everywhere, and I also grew up eating all their cuisines.
I relate to you so much. I relate to you so much. My last guest, she's another comic, but she's also a lawyer. Her name is Brittany Alexis, and we're friends. And that still blows my mind because growing up, we didn't know anybody professional. I never knew anyone of a status. And when you met someone, people would be like, "Oh, that's such and such," Yeah. So having just a casual friend who, to me, being a lawyer is a success no matter what. It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not necessarily that they were all casual friends, though. It's just that you would see them.
Oh, no.
Right. But yeah, going down the street, catching the subway, going to school, right?
Yeah.
I'd be on the subway and I'd see all this wonderful rainbow of people with suits and briefcases. And the great thing about DC is you never know who someone is in DC and what they do, because you have so many of these huge agencies in the sciences and in government and so on, right? And it's just amazing to be in an area where you just see all this multicultural and all these different faces being represented in all these different places. So that was, I think. And I'm sorry, just one last thing.
No.
I had Mayor and Barry as my mayor.
Okay.
And so he did things like there was a recreation center in every neighborhood. It was staffed year round, and the kids in that neighborhood went to that recreation center. And then he had a summer youth program where when you turned 14 years old and you were able to get your work permit, you got a job through DC government and you worked at that recreation center or one of those recreation centers, and you became the mentors to the kids that grew up in that neighborhood. It was,
like laying a foundation.
And that's sort of the foundation for the Citizen Science Lab, right? That's the dream for the Citizen Science Lab, is to be able to create these little neighborhood STEM or science-based recreation centers that are operating year-round.
That sounds like a beautiful way to grow up. And it sounds like it's very beneficial. Why do you think programs like these aren't more widespread?
We don't have the big names. We don't have the big names to back us up, right? So celebrities can catch on to an idea and maybe start a foundation and they can get something going, right? But look, I'm a small dude and I'm working my way up in this world, and I'm trying.
Doing a hell of a job.
I'm trying to spread the message and let people know, and hopefully the right person will come along and be like, you know what, this is phenomenal. We see the potential. Let's go ahead and invest. And when I talk about invest, right, you have to remember we're a nonprofit, so there is no monetary return. The return comes in the forms of the students who started with us in middle school, who stayed with us through high school, who graduated and went away as biology and engineering majors, who come back during the summer and say, hey, we'd like to work for you and work with you so we can start mentoring. That's the investment. That's the return on the investment. And until we find people who are ready to just throw all of their, their passion and their support into a model that works, rather than a model that has a big name behind it or a big entity behind it. That's the only way we're going to really, I think, make any headway here.
Well, last episode, I physically threatened Chris from the Backstreet Boys, and I called Vin Diesel out for public fights.
Oh, yeah?
So hopefully I can call out Terry Crews to come and sponsor. Somebody help us out here. This is a great idea, great program we got going. We need some support. You also founded S.I.G.M.A.
Yeah.
And what does that stand for?
S.I.G.M.A is an acronym that stands for Science, Innovation, Growth, and Mentorship, which leads to achievement.
Now, I like the fact that all of your, let me see how I can word this. All of your focus on education is also paired with like mentorship, fellowship, community. That is something special. So tell us a little more about that, please.
I think it stems from one. I want to create a safe space. I believe that almost every child has gone through some trauma in their life, and when they come to our lab, they should be able to forget about that trauma and just enjoy what we're trying to present to them. And the only way to do that really is to develop, I think, lasting and genuine relationships with them. And the only way to do that is to have them come to us on a regular basis over long periods of time. And so, I think that, really, I mean, that's it. It's just, we instruct from a level of care and sharing versus instructing from a level of instruction, I guess you could say.
That
my
makes
approach,
so much sense.
My approach is, you know what, I like to sum it up as the Jedi method of raising scientists. I love it. You know what I'm saying? I look at our little elementary school kids as the younglings who are born and one with the Force already, right? Okay. They're already inquisitive. They already want to know. Let's keep that spark going. Right? Then the next up, you got the Padawans, right? And those are your junior high, your high school kids, right? And then when you go off to college, right, you become a knight, right? When you finish that bachelor's in that first degree. And then, of course, there's the ultimate, there's that Ph.D., and that is your Jedi master. And they all teach the ones underneath them, right? And that is sort of how I move forward with how we instruct at the Citizen Science Lab.
So I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I had very high expectations for this episode. They've been blown out of the water already with this.
Wow.
Great analogy.
Yeah. I told you I'm a straight nerd.
I'm loving every minute
Believe
of
it
this.
or not. Yeah.
So I got something here about you studying the toxicology
Yeah.
and carcinogenicity
Mm-hmm.
effects on novel drugs. Okay, let's break it down. What are novel drugs?
Novel always means new in the
Okay.
science world, right?
Okay.
Novel approaches, novel techniques, novel drugs,
Okay.
novel methods. All it's our fancy, nerdy way of saying new. Okay.
Salutations, Shades, and welcome back to your one-stop shop for all things strange and unusual, Talking with Shadows, the conversation everyone has, but no one wants to admit to. Here with your host, Vic Whaley.
And Marcus D. Now come along with us as we explore the most obscure things our universe has to offer. We specialize in helping people make sense of the most bizarre phenomenon you'll ever come across. You'll get all the great topics such as UFOs, cryptids, and psychic phenomenon, but also some stories that are so spectacular they scare people to believe that they're true. Now take a seat and welcome to the One Candle Society. But always remember, keep believing.
Because we'll keep listening.
Yeah.
So what was going on with the testing there?
So there are, all right, so let's, every drug has to go through rigorous testing before it comes to market, of course, right? And so, of course, it's expensive, and not every company has the resources to build the facilities to do the testing. So I worked for a company, and what this company did was it essentially, was contracted in order to do the non-clinical trials for these companies. Non-clinical refers to animal models. And then when you say clinical trials, then we're talking about testing it on people. Okay. So whenever you hear about...
They're slick with the words.
yeah.
I would have never known that.
Exactly. You would think something different, right? But
I thought people were just willy-nilly. I never thought.
Yeah.
Rabbits. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So when they're talking about non-clinical trials, they're talking about their animal model trials or their tissue culture trials or in vitro or whatever. So I'm sorry, in vitro, which means like in
That's the fertilization thing, huh?
Well, it means like in a test tube.
Okay.
All right. And so it's called in vitro fertilization because the test tube occurs the fertilization occurs in a test tube. So, or in a laboratory.
We are
dish.
learning a lot today. We are learning a lot. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You said they're non-clinical trials and they're
right. And so what we did was we did the non-clinical trials. So essentially, your drug is almost ready to go to market, and now you have to test it on the animals to see if there are any adverse effects on the animals before we bring it to the market to test on people. And so we would have these rooms. These rooms would be full of either rats or mice or smaller models like hamsters or something like that. And we would have to dose the animals with a compound.
Model.
Right? Animal models. Work the runway. But you go in, and our job was to go in, and we'd have these huge racks of animals, and you just go in and dose them all day. And so you go in, you grab a rat, you gavage it, which is this needle with a long tube that goes down their throat. You put the compound in their stomach, and you pop them back, and then you grab the next rat, and you all day.
Now, did these animals have like the ailment that the drug was trying to test?
No. So toxicology and carcinogenicity studies, what we're doing is we're looking to see if the compounds are toxic, and we're looking to see if the compounds cause cancer or tumors.
Okay, not effects even, just see if does this kill you?
Right.
Good job.
It does what we wanted to do in the test tube. Now let's put it in people and let's see if it causes cancer or if it's toxic.
Okay.
What are the high levels that they can, what are the high levels of the compound that they can take or stand, and at what levels do these adverse effects occur, and so on. Yeah.
That sounds much more important when you break it down than it does on paper.
Well, I tell you what, I wouldn't want to touch anything that did not go through a clinical or non-clinical trial.
Well, you also worked on a hookworm vaccine development.
Yeah.
Now, how does like one go about starting to develop a vaccine? Is there like base models that you add to?
So yeah. I mean, with this guy, so I worked on the hookworm vaccine, and it wasn't my research study. So I came aboard and worked for Dr. Peter Hotez, and I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but he's been in the news quite a bit. Because he's a vaccine expert, and so of course he's been in the news quite a bit and on the speaking circuit, speaking about COVID and COVID infections and misinformation and so on. So he's currently at Baylor. I believe he's the president of Baylor or something like that. I can't remember. But I worked for him, and this was his project.
See how current we are, guys?
I worked for him, and we worked on a project where we were attacking hookworms. Hookworm is still a terrible infection, and there hadn't been a vaccine developed for it, and we were working on DNA and RNA vaccines. And so basically what you do, you just take components of the infection, you break it down, and you inject it and hope that those small components will induce an immune response and that your body will remember it if it's to ever see the real live infection again.
Yeah, that's what people don't realize about like vaccines.
Yeah.
Like they're not putting a live crazy disease.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I stopped watching the news about all this stuff.
I don't blame you.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And then you know what? Once they said there's going to be comedy clubs where if you're not vaccinated, I was like, sign me up. I got vaxxed. I was like, whatever. Put the chip in. I don't care.
The chip, everybody has a chip already.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Yep.
It's right here. Here's your chip. All right? We don't need to put it in your bodies. It's
Yeah, they're like, government's not
okay.
gonna, from their face, they're like, government's not going to track me.
Right.
I love it. Yeah, sign me up.
Okay. Yeah. This app deletes everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
Hold on to that dream.
So we got here a tuberculosis reactivation in non-human primates.
Yeah.
What's like just monkeys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what does that mean? You guys put a live tuberculosis in it? Okay.
So yeah. So this was another one of my favorite studies. This was done here in Pittsburgh, and I was working on the latency and reactivation study. So let's break it down. Tuberculosis, about a quarter of the world, third of the world, I think, is infected with tuberculosis.
Really?
Yeah.
You in the States as well?
In the States.
Okay.
And it's the stage of infection that's called latency, which means that it's there, but it's not active, and you're not.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Tuberculosis, was that what people were ailed with when they said they died of consumption?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Old school tactics, man. Do you know that back in those days, they used to excise parts of the lungs and then replace it with a golf ball to the part that had the granuloma or the infection?
I did not know that.
Yeah. And they would recommend that, you go out to these, I forgot what they were called, but they were like these spas essentially that were out in the mountains, and were like, oh, your cure for consumption is going to be going out and getting fresh air, right?
Yeah.
And so tuberculosis has a crazy history with how it was treated and how it's been developed. But yes, that is it. Sorry, not to go off on a tangent,
no.
but you know how us nerds are, right? We just we just get going, dude.
All right, so you're the reactivation study.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So we did tuberculosis, reactivation, and latency. So essentially what would happen is we would find that people who had latency would somehow be reactivated and go into full-blown disease. And so our study would be we would take the non-human primates, the monkeys, and they would be infected with tuberculosis, and they would go into latency. And then we would see what it was that would reactivate them and cause them to go into reactivation. And one of the things that we found was that if you hear a lot of these drugs like Humira and some of these other drugs that are anti-TNF inhibitors, okay, we have found that those drugs are actually one of the causes of the reactivation of latency disease, tuberculosis. And so now you hear that disclaimer says, you should not take this drug if you have had tuberculosis.
What is Humira?
Humira is it's a
for?
drug that people are using for rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay.
And I think probably now maybe some other autoimmune diseases, right? And there's some other equivalents that are made by other competing companies and so on. Like S.I.G.M.A makes an equivalent of it.
So those drugs were found to reactivate tuberculosis.
Exactly. And we did the studies on that. So
Oh, wow.
we would get the monkeys in latency, and then part of our study, there were a number of different studies, but part of the study would be to inject them with Humira. And we were injecting them with Humira, and then they would go into full-blown disease.
Oh, wow.
So being able to see some of your work, right,
Yeah.
on public and on TV, and even though they don't mention my name, I can be like, hey, I did that.
Yeah,
and when I tell my grandkids, they'll look at me like I'm some old crazy black man. They're like, oh, you don't know what he's talking about.
That's part of
I
my
used to work on Humira.
That is amazing. Wow. So let's go over some of your awards here, if you don't mind.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The 2015 BME Leadership Award.
Yeah, it's sorry, it's Be Me.
Be Me.
Yeah. Sorry.
Again.
I didn't know. You know what? And I didn't even
such an
think to
idiot.
do it when we were. Yeah,
I'm
but
such an idiot.
It's okay. It happens to a lot.
You know
of
what?
us.
Every time I read
You're not an
BME,
idiot.
I'm thinking BMF, Black Mafia Family.
Yeah. Well, very different.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, what award?
Yeah.
Okay,
Be me.
be me.
Be
Okay.
me, which essentially means be me, be myself, be me. Black male empowerment.
Okay.
It is an organization that initially it started recognizing black males who were doing very positive things in their neighborhoods. And they were really about trying to make sure that the narrative of positive black male leadership was exposed and positive black male fatherhood was exposed, and making sure that people understand that these statistics that we hear is not the all of us, right? And so, yeah, I got recognized for my work very early on with the Citizen Science Lab through them. And
Yeah,
that
'cause you said you finished your PhD in 2014.
in 2014.
Okay, so coming out the gate hot.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
And hey, the sophomore year didn't disappoint. It said you got 4 awards for participation in Sea Perch.
Yeah, so Sea Perch is this aquatic robotics program, right? You actually need a swimming pool for this to work.
Okay.
Now, it was originally started as a course, undergraduate course by a professor at MIT who wanted to expose his students to every aspect of engineering possible in one sort of module. Later, it became adopted by the U.S. Navy as a Sea Perch program, which they started using to get more people interested in, aquatic robotics, essentially, because the Navy is very, water heavy, ocean heavy, and so right. Let's use this as a way to get people interested into in the Navy, right? So and then it became this great sort of competition, regional competition, and this national competition. I was invited once to be a judge, and I went to be a judge, and I loved it.
Now you're judging their creation.
Their creation,
Okay.
right. And I'm judging whether or not, I'm taking, you have to do these obstacles in the water, and you have to do them, they have to be timed and so on.
Can you describe some of what they made?
Yeah, well, so these guys are made completely out of PVC pipe, 1-inch PVC pipe. It's essentially PVC pipe framed, what we call a ROV, remote operated vehicle. And then you take these 3 motors. You're only allowed 3 motors, one for forward, backward, left and right, and then one for up and down, right? And they have to design the Sea Perch themselves. They have to waterproof the motors, put the motors together. They have to wire the motors and solder everything, and then solder a control box. So essentially, it's a tethered robot, okay, that has these propellers on it. You put it in the water, and it should go forward, backward, up, and down. Now you have 2 obstacles every year that you have to master, and the teams work together to master the obstacles, right? You get them through the hoops, and then back through the hoops, and the quickest time, of course, wins, and then you get a point for every hoop that you get through.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And
Are you familiar with the Bot Ball robotics competition?
no, I don't think I am.
I don't know if it's still around anymore. but in middle school, I
Uh-huh.
was part of the team. You create a little, robot, and you have to program it to complete a task against another robot.
Okay.
And I was part of the team that won the regional here.
Oh yeah.
And then we
Look
got a
at
trip to
you.
Seattle and got our ass handed to us. But yeah, that was a thing. So that was cool, designing. So it was like just little cool submarines.
Essentially, yeah, little cool submarines, and you have to learn how to navigate the submarine like from the top of the water.
See, that's so interesting, but I've never heard of it. And you would think as much like they have darts on ESPN. They had video game streaming of NFL games at one point. They could have that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's exposure.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
They're like, oh, here's the cornhole competition. And you're like, what the hell am I watching?
Yeah.
Who doesn't like robots?
It's awesome, dude. Especially, for the kids. I mean, and they have an adult, version as well, and then they have an open competition.
Oh,
so
man.
there are no restrictions on what you can do to modify it. It
Really?
is really pretty awesome. Yeah.
Now, this is a little off topic.
Yeah.
But do you remember the show BattleBots?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I always thought that was so cool.
Yeah. Well, there's a group here. There's a group in Pittsburgh that does battle bots with kids in high school and middle school. They're called Bots IQ. And they're really, so if anyone out there is like in the area and interested in getting their kids into battle bots, check out Bots IQ. They're a really good organization that supports these sorts of competitions.
Shout out to Bots IQ. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So with the like open challenges, is there anything like some people do that modify it to make it like what's an extreme modification you've seen?
Wow. I think the coolest one I saw was they made a little tiny version of it out of like really tiny PVC pipe. I think it may have been like 1/4 inch or something PVC pipe. So it was real tiny, and it made it super fast. And I think for me, that was the coolest thing because it's really hard to get these sea perches to go fast. The kids end up putting so much weight on them. And I thought it was really ingenious to make the frame smaller so they could get more speed out of it. It was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Some people will put like video cameras on them and add LED lights so they can tell what direction it's going in. Yeah. Some have not used PVC pipe at all and use completely different structures. So.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned here that was for the Navy Embark program.
Oh, yeah. So, we did so well. We got those 4 awards essentially our first year. We did so well that we were invited by the Navy to do a Navy Embark program, which is where they essentially fly you out to San Diego to a naval base.
Oh, that's cool.
And you get to go out and go out onto a aircraft carrier. You go out into that aircraft carrier and you stay out in the aircraft carrier in an unknown, undisclosed spot for 48 hours, and you live with the soldiers.
Do you live like them? Like
you live
eat
like
chow with
them. Yeah, well, I mean, they gave us this thing called like the Senate room or the estate quarters or something like that. But I mean, it was essentially like their quarters. I mean, we go out and we watch the planes take off and land. You watch the ops. You watch night ops. You get to see every aspect of what they do.
That got to be a cool experience, man.
It was phenomenal because what you realize when you're on that deck, you see these kids, 18 years old, right out of high school, straight in the Navy, repairing aircraft.
Kids.
Right? Kids. Learning how to repair these aircraft. Learning how to do some of the really amazing things that were behind these closed doors that we can't really talk about, right?
Ridiculous responsibility.
Ridiculous responsibility, but so science heavy. So STEM, if you want to use the term, so STEM focused, right? There's so much more than just being like a shipman and swabbing the deck and so many more opportunities in sciences. So we were amazed, and we got a chance to experience that as part of the recognition for the work we did with Sea Perch.
I wonder if does the Navy have a campaign highlighting like the sciences and like come be a scientist in the Navy or?
Yeah. It's rough. They were really sort of pushing this back in 2014, 15, maybe even 16. But there was a change in direction where the Navy really wasn't even behind sea perch anymore. And there was a change in funding where some of the naval offices downtown in Pittsburgh, I think they were given a direction where they couldn't support, or the budget was changed and they couldn't use it to support the sea perch program anymore because they wanted to change direction. Thanks,
Joe Biden.
Well, I'll be quite honest. This happened before.
Yeah,
this happened before. But
I just love saying that to every.
Because somebody's saying it. Yeah, somebody's saying it. Somebody's saying it. But yeah.
All right. So, 2016 though, you got the President's Volunteer Service Award.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about that a little bit.
So that was due to the recognition of B.Me. And so B.Me decided that they wanted to make sure that some of these leaders in their organization got high recognition. And there were some of us that were selected. I think it was about 62 of us that were selected to receive this award under the Obama administration.
Okay.
And so that was a man.
Did you get to meet the president?
No.
Oh man.
So look, check this out. All right. So I'm from D.C., right? So remember, I'm from D.C. So we go to D.C. to receive the award. And it was a phenomenal thing because the leader of B.Me, the CEO, Travian Shorters, who was a phenomenal brother, said, I want us to get on the subway, go to the White House, and all of us in suits. And it was like 100 of us in suits, black men in suits, riding the subway, and then walking up to the White House, right? We get in.
Very powerful image.
Very powerful image, right? Where people are like, whoa, where are these guys going?
I know somebody had to think Muslims.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Oh, they're protesting.
Who knows? But
crazy.
hopefully what they were thinking was, and what they were seeing was like the very, very powerful image of these men in suits as leaders, and understanding that we had a presence that was a positive image,
that
right?
Had to be beautiful, man.
So it was amazing. So we go and we're waiting in line, waiting to go through security
at the White House.
At the White House,
okay.
Right? We're in the back.
Set the tone. How's the excitement level?
It's phenomenal. We're all on our faces. We're live streaming on Facebook. We're like showing the suits, and a lot of us have just meeting for the first time. So a lot of brothers are dapping each other's up, and it's a phenomenal time.
Yeah,
we're waiting to get in. I get into the door. I'm like 2 people away from the door. Next thing I know, swarm, move us out the way. The guns get pulled out. Everybody starts running down, and they're like, it's a shutdown, it's a lockdown. They pull us away, tell us to go away across the street. Long story short, there was a gun on the grounds. There was a man with a gun on the grounds just as we were getting ready to go in. And they shot this dude, right? They shot him in the stomach. I think he lived.
I don't mean to laugh at dude getting shot.
They shot this dude because he had a gun, and they were like, put the gun down. He was literally like, I don't know, 20, 50 feet away from where we were. We didn't see this happening, but this happened like right behind us. And so they shut everything down. And we were not allowed to go in. And there were some of us who were already in there, and they were shut down for hours. They were stuck in there for hours because they wouldn't let anybody in or anybody out. So we ended up, they made arrangements for us to get our awards at like the ballroom of the hotel that we were staying in. And because of the gun threat, right, like no one from the White House or administration was going to come and present this to us. But it was still a phenomenal experience because we still got that recognition. And
so without the gun, though, you guys were meeting the president.
We don't know.
Oh.
We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. It was, I don't think we were going to meet the president. I don't know.
You never know.
We never know. You never know. I mean, he might have popped in. We were told he wasn't there. Who knows?
I mean.
Right? But.
Come on.
It didn't happen.
No one knows where he's at.
No one knows
he's
where he's
never
at.
Anywhere.
But yeah. So it didn't work out for us.
Oh, man.
But we did get the award.
Congrats on the award. Yeah, it did work out for you.
Yeah, I mean, we got the award. We got the recognition.
No, it worked out great, man. You got the award. So here we go. This is my favorite award to say. In 2017, you got the Poseidon.
Oh, yeah.
After School Champion Award.
Yeah.
And by the way, people, it's spelled P-S-A-Y-D-E-N, and I pronounced it as just a weird long acronym before the episode.
Yeah, the Poseidon Award was, Poseidon is this organization, a nonprofit that recognizes educational, I think, achievement and advancements with out-of-school time programs. And so, we are a out-of-school informal program. And so we try to provide after-school programs on a regular basis, 5 days a week, so that students have a place to come and be able to have something to do that's constructive and fun. And so, that was one of the awesome ones, because we got invited to Harrisburg to receive that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get to meet the governor?
No.
Come on, man.
No.
Come on.
I have not had. You know what? I've met some senators. I know some wonderful representatives and city councilmen. And so on. But no presidents, no governors yet.
Come on, Joe Biden. So, the IOTA Phi Foundation's Excellence in Education Award. What? We're just listing them here. What's going on, man?
I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable, because all we're doing is talking about achievements. It's really weird. But yeah, that is I got that from the IOTA Phi Foundation, which is a chapter of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Omega Psi Phi fraternity is a historically black fraternity. They're known as the Qs, and
okay,
yeah, and that was bittersweet. Not bittersweet, but it was really, really sort of full circle for me, because I'll tell you why. It was recognition by a fraternity that I wanted to join when I was first started my college career. Mm-hmm. I started school at Tuskegee University. I went straight to Tuskegee University out of high school, in 1989. I went there. I was a pre-vet major. I was going to be a veterinarian. I wanted to be a veterinarian. And so I forgot where I was going. Went to Tuskegee.
Wanted to be a veterinarian?
Wanted to be a veterinarian. And essentially, I got in trouble. I wasn't prepared. I actually ended up at a point where I got arrested during a break from Tuskegee for writing a bad check to Nordstrom's.
I empathize with being arrested.
Right?
If anybody does,
yeah,
I do.
Yeah. So it was a little bit there were barriers and things that I had to overcome before I got myself ready to go back to school and focus and do these things. But I wanted to join the Qs, right? And I never got a chance because I couldn't go back to school that next semester. And so being recognized by a group of the Qs here locally, which is a fraternity that I always wanted to join back in the day, was really full circle for me and was pretty awesome.
It's got to feel great to have an achievement like that.
Yeah.
Now, guys, didn't end there.
We're done, right?
We got one more. We got to hit. It's
yeah.
How can you forget about this one?
Yeah.
It's the 2020 Carnegie Science Center's Leadership in STEM Education Award.
Wow. Yeah.
So you've been recognized quite a bit for your works here.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Wow. I mean, when you break it all down like that, it just it's.
I'll be honest, man. For the show, I didn't know much about you outside of what I read.
Yeah.
I was obviously impressed with it. You're a very charming dude, man. Very charismatic.
Thank
I
you.
really enjoyed talking with you. I want you to promo your website, where they can find you, reach you, anywhere.
Sure. You can find us at www.thecitizensciencelab.org. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. All you have to do is search for The Citizen Science Lab or at Citizen Sci. It'll pop up. You just look for the green and red test tube, and that's us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, hey, thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I loved it. This is the part, though, where I ask people to give a piece of advice.
Ooh.
Just with you, I'm not going to specialize. Just any piece of advice you want to give to the people.
I think my best piece of advice is keep pushing forward. No matter what gets thrown in your way, no matter what setbacks you have, they're all temporary, And we as a species have the greatest, I think, superpower out there, and we forget that. And that's this mind and this ability to overcome problems and problem solve and reach our goals at some point, right? I went to school with plenty of people who got their Ph.D. straight out of school, right? Straight through the program. For us, for some of us, it's going to take a little longer because we have challenges that we have to deal with. Don't let those challenges keep you from getting to where you want to be.
Whew. Dr. Andre Samuel, thank you again so much.
Thanks,
that
Johnny.
was beautiful.
I love being here. This is awesome.
Guys, I'll be in Newcastle on the 6th. You want to come check it out. Until then, peace and love.
Peace and love.